Well, I'm assuming that some more folks are going to come in. My name is Matt Brown. I'm the Chief of Police of Port Orchard. We'll do some quick introductions. Mayor Patonci wants to give us a good send off, and then we'll get into the meat of this thing. So thank you to Janine, who's with the clerk's office, for helping set this up. I don't know which direction on your monitor, but the illustrious Jewel Shepard Sampson is going to be our facilitator for this evening. And then Mayor Patonci is also here. And Deputy Chief Donna May is a little bit off the camera, but she can certainly answer some questions as those come in as well. But I'll turn it over to the mayor for a quick introduction.
Thank you, Chief Brown. I too would like to thank Jewel for agreeing to facilitate this evening's meeting, and Janine Floyd for taking time out of her personal life to support us from the clerk's office so we could do this recording, and also acknowledge Deputy Chief Main, who's off camera here. So Chief Brown, thank you for what I greatly appreciate the proactive practices that you're bringing to our community and within our police department. And I know we're working on accreditation and many exciting things, and hiring a diverse and highly talented group of officers, not necessarily young, but the latest one was a young man. So appreciate the things you're doing, and you didn't come here to hear me speak, so let's get this going.
Okay, thank you, sir. So for those of you in the audience, I'm going to do a real quick presentation on the department in case you need to have a little bit more information about us. And then we've got some questions that did come in ahead of time. And then Jewel's going to also be looking at the chat and see if there are other questions that come up. And we're here for an hour, and I will answer whatever you want to ask me within reason. So I will share my screen and we'll do the presentation. If I can figure it out. Okay, so this is the guidon that we came up with. We'll talk a little bit more about what service, honor, and integrity means to us and why that's important. But when I first got here, I got roped into running a fantastic charity half marathon, and we carried this guidon for the first mile and a half. So this is me. It's I was hired in 2000 with the Pierce County Sheriff's Office. And that's at my commissioning. The deputy chief and I were laughing earlier today that I didn't know I needed to take the cardboard out of my tie, which is why it's so straight. I worked for Pierce County for 4 years. I spent all of that time in the contract city of Lakewood. And then in 2004, we formed our own police department in the city of Lakewood, and I was a plank member of that. In 2016, I met the sheriff of Walla Walla County, which is where my family's from and where they still live. And after some conversations, he and I agreed that it would be a great idea for us to work together. So I moved over there. My darling wife came with us, or came with me rather. She is Puget Sound born and raised. So the first winter we were there was 2.5 feet of snow on the ground. And 6 months later, it was 100 degrees at 8 in the morning. And she said, "I love you. You are welcome to come back with me, but I'm leaving." So I moved back. Happy wife, happy life. I was hired in 2017 to be the deputy chief at the Poulsbo Police Department. And in the spring of 2019, this position opened. And since this is the community that I chose to live in, when I came back to this side of the mountains, it was just a perfect series of events. This is a great department, and I was really excited and was fortunate to be selected to be your chief. So that's me, and again, those are my sisters. So one of the things that we did when I first got here, I went and did one-on-ones with everyone on the team, and I said, "Hey, what's our mission? Why are we here? What do we do when we go out the door?" And we worked on this mission statement together, and that was with not only the officers, but also with the mayor and with our electeds. And the reason that we do that is I don't want our mission, what we know is our goal every day. I don't want that to just be SpaghettiOs on the wall. I want that to really mean something. And so it was important that we did that. So we developed this over about 3 or 4 months. Same with the vision. We talked to everybody about that. The mayor and I sat down and I said, what do we want to be? And we made a point to say that we want to be amongst the finest. And that's important professionally, because if you say you are the best, number one, you're putting down your partners, but number two, where else are you going to go? But if we're amongst the finest, we know that we can always continue to improve. And that's something that we talk about every day with our team. For those of you that have been here a long time, you may have noticed about a year ago or so, we changed some of the graphics on our cars, and we added service, honor, and integrity. And those are our core values. Those are the things that our officers use to guide them. And we ask them, are the choices and the actions that you are taking, are they done in service to your community and your partners? Are you honoring the oath that you took to the laws and to the Constitution and the people of this community? And are your decisions and your actions, do they maintain your integrity? Because if you say no to any of those things, then you're not doing the right thing. What's really important about those three is those, again, were chosen by the team. Those are not words that I put together and said, this is what you should do. In my one-on-ones, I asked every single one of them, what are our professional values? What are your professional values? And while there were a number of other words and concepts spoken, every single person in this department, from professional staff to commissioned officers, said that their values were service, honor, and integrity. So those are inscribed all over the place, so that guys, or the men and women, know when they walk out that door that they are making their decisions based on those. It's very, very important for us. So this is our current structure. As you can see, we do have 3 vacancies. We, as the mayor said, we did just hire a young man. We think he is going to be fantastic. He starts the academy on Wednesday. So we've only had him for 2 weeks, and we were able to get him swiftly into the academy. It's pretty exciting. So we do have the 2 different divisions. We have administrative services, and that covers records and of all kinds, whether it be case reports or training or managing our inventory, and also our property and evidence room. We have our community health navigator in that division as well, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. That was a great thing that the council allowed us to move forward this year. And then we have operations, and that's all of our commission staff. And Deputy Chief Donna Main is in charge of that division. We normally have 2 detectives. Because of the vacancies that we have, we only have 1. But we are working really hard to bring some new people in. We've got some great candidates. We've got some really, really fantastic people in background right now. But it does take time. When we put people through training, the academy itself is 720 hours. And when they get back, they have an additional 2 weeks of onboarding, and then they have another 580 hours of field training before they're even on their own. And then it's another 8 months of probation after that before they're fully signed off, because we want to make sure that we have the right people and we keep the right people. The graphic on the right side kind of talks about our supervisory coverage. That's something else that we're working on, and the city's been pretty supportive with, is making sure that we have a sergeant on duty at all times. I want to talk a little bit about our accomplishments. I've been here about 20 months, and the team will tell you that the first little bit that I was here, we moved fairly quickly. There were some things that I thought were important, and they were game, and so we were off to the races, and we did it. First thing we did is we looked at our policy manual, and we said, how can we do this better, and how can we make sure that it's delivered better? So we have a contract with a company called Lexipol, and they provide us our policy manual digitally. So if you want to use your phone, you can access it via your phone. It's not a giant binder that sits in your trunk. What's also nice about that too is that it takes the onus off of me to constantly pay attention to changing case law. The contract we have, their attorneys go through Ninth Circuit decisions, Washington decisions, and federal decisions. And as we need to adapt and change our policy manual, we can do so with a few quick keystrokes. We share these regionalized practices with everyone else in the county, and it's becoming a national standard. What I can also say about it is that because it's ours, we can still change it. It's customizable. So there are certain things that are in there that are general that we make more specific so that they fit what we do and they fit what the community asks of us. We did add a 4th sergeant position. That was done last July. And so right now, out of the 4 sergeants, we have 3 of them who are brand new within the last year. And it is just phenomenal and exciting to watch these new sergeants learn and hone their craft. It's been amazing. We've increased our training. So the state of Washington requires validation of only 24 hours of training per year for a certified peace officer. When we look at what we need to accomplish, and I'll show you in another slide, we recognize that at a minimum, we have 96 hours of training that we need to do just to stay with what's expected. So we do a lot of online delivery of classes so that we can make sure that our officers are aware of that and are tracking on that. And also with I-940 and LATIXA, which is the Law Enforcement Training and Community Safety Act, there is additional training that is required out of that. So we decided to start doing some online delivery so that when we were able to meet in person, we can do a lot of the other things that have to be done, whether it be tactics, whether it be learning how to apply first aid and a lot of the other requirements that you just can't get by sitting in a class. You need to be in person and active. We've also leveraged a lot of technology to reduce staff time and reduce cost. We have gone away from using paper for the most part. It's still, we still have to use it on occasion, but we don't put our case reports on paper anymore. They're all digital. We now match everything that everyone else in the county who's on the same records management system does. And not only saving the officers time, but even just the time it takes for one of our professional staff to take a hard copy of a report and walk it down the hall to where our records room is, file it and walk back. It's now all completely automated. And we also went to a new patrol schedule. We had been on a mix of 5/8s and 4/10s, and all of our training had to be delivered on overtime. And it also made it difficult to try and plan training events because not everybody could be available, or some people needed to try and do it while they are also responsible for responding to 911 calls. So our new patrol schedule not only gives the officers 2 weekends off a month because it rotates, but it also gives us dedicated training days. So we have worked it out so that we have 6 dedicated 10-hour training days per year, plus what we do online. And because the shifts are a little bit longer and we've overlapped our coverage, we've reduced our overtime costs. I wanted to talk a little bit about the training expectations. So when we sat down and started working on our master training plan for both, helping our officers get professionally developed, or if we were saying, well, what do we need to do on an annual basis or biannual or triannual? Again, we came up with about 96 hours that we need to do. There's federal and state requirements. Under the new LATIXA law, we have a 40-hour training cycle that needs to be completed every 3 years. COVID has pulled us back a little bit from that because, again, those are in-person training, and it's been difficult to do, but we're doing the best we can. We are on track. That is required of every peace officer in the state to have that 40 hours by 2028. If we had not been derailed by COVID, we would have likely have had the first required 28 hours done by the end of last year. Our insurance company also requires certain things, so does OSHA. And then there's best practice. There's what do we look at in our industry and say, I know it's not required, but we really should be good at this anyway. And so we make sure that we look at those, and we make sure that we have, if not in-house instructors, we are working regionally to make sure that we have a regional cadre of instructors so that we can all rely upon that. And it's also important that we all train together so that we understand each other's tactics. We know each other. We've built those relationships. So if we have a large critical incident, we can respond, and we're all responding in the same way. We did do our first strategic plan. It's a 5-year plan from 21 to 25. I will thank Jewel, because Jewel is a member of our strategic advisory board, and that is available on our website. If anyone wants to take a look at it, I'm not going to dive deeply into it, but the 5 main concepts that we came up with were community engagement, communication, employee development, and accreditation. And so some of the things that we've already had success on with the strategic plan is we did form a community advisory board. That is an advisory board to the chief. It's made up of 9 members from the community. And the requirement that we had is you have to have direct and relatively long-standing ties to this community, whether you are a business owner, whether you are a longtime resident, and we've got membership from the NAACP. We've got membership from one of the local churches, from POBSA, which is the Port Orchard Bay Street Association, from the superintendent of South Kitsap South Kitsap School District is there. It's been a fantastic group that we've worked on building those relationships so that we can have hard conversations. One of the things that is difficult to talk about is race, and we talk about race and policing. And I mean, I'll be honest, and Jewel can certainly pipe in whenever she chooses. Those are hard conversations, and we are willing to politely confront each other and even have disagreements. But I mean, we just had a meeting last week, and there's some powerful stuff that came out of there that is changing not only some of the ways that we police, but it's helping to spread some better knowledge throughout our community. It's been tremendously successful. We've done our first town hall. That was also something that was asked for in community outreach. We'll talk more about our community health navigator here in a moment, but that is something that the council supported. And we brought on a new navigator that is dedicated to the south end of Kitsap County. One of the other components was increasing training for our employees and contributing to their professional development. And that includes leadership training. We trust our sergeants to go out and mentor and manage and supervise and lead our staff. And we have to remember that that's a skill that they have to work on. You can't just put stripes on your arm and you're good forever. So we've really dedicated them to at least 40 hours of leadership training per year. We're working more on officer wellness, both through some online applications and resources, but we're also intending regionally to bring in a resiliency instructor from California that will teach the entire commissioned. We're hoping that it's going to be able to extend all the way to all commissioned officers in the county. And that's through a grant from the International Associations of Chiefs of Police. It's important. If you don't have healthy and mentally well officers, that reflects in their choices, and then you don't have as healthy of a community. So I think approaching it from that angle, because we want everyone to be better and we want everyone to do well, it's been pretty effective so far. We're also seeking accreditation through the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs. And we were just talking about it earlier that we've finished up for the most part what we need to do. And we've got that organization starting to take a look at what our activities and what our practices are in this department. And so far we are doing fantastic. There has not been a single issue with what we're doing. And it's been a bit of work. Jewel can also attest to how many times I come in and talk about it. But we're excited, and we believe that will be done by summer. We've also done some technology upgrades. One of the things that we just had installed, we now, since everybody has a cell phone so that they can take photographs of evidence in the field, we have now upgraded our property room so that you can take those, and instead of putting them on a CD and then on another CD so that you can provide that to the prosecutor and the defense, and then putting one in the case file and then putting one in the property room, which involves people and time and cost. The upgrade that we did is you plug your phone into our system and it takes those photos directly off. It assigns a value to them for how long we have to retain them. It cuts down staff time. It makes it incredibly simple. And when we need to provide those photos, you provide a secure link as opposed to going and waiting for somebody from property to pull it out of the property room and give it to you. I'm very excited. I get excited about some of those things a lot more than I probably should. This is Melissa Stern. So we kind of talked about the success of having a community health navigator. So she is our latest employee. She started in February, and she is in partnership with South Kitsap Fire Rescue. And the goal for Ms. Stern as a navigator is to help us to reduce 911 calls for issues of behavioral health and dependency. Not that we don't want to help these people, but what we are trying to do is reduce the number of times that first responders have to go to non-emergencies. She's had some tremendous success in getting people to treatment. She's had some tremendous success getting people to the behavioral health professionals that they need. And the way that it works for us, and very similar for fire, is that when our officers go out and they contact someone that we have identified as a high user of 911 services, she will follow up with them the next day and say, what do you need? What can I help you with? Because what we have found is that a lot of times people really, really do want help, but they don't know how to get it. They don't know where it is. We've done her presentation a half dozen times throughout the community, and she's doing great work. I'd love to to share more success stories, but those are her stories to share, and she's going to have an interview with the Independent here next week, so I don't want to spoil those for her. And finally, again, for those of you that are kind of checking out our website, we're trying to be a lot better about posting things. One of the additional documents that we put out this year, which is brand new to this agency, is what we are calling our professional standards report. And that is a review and analysis of these 7 areas of what we call critical incidents critical incidents throughout the year. And so we look at all of our complaints, and we will take every single complaint. If you call up and say that aliens are coming in through the police department, we will look into that and send you a letter that we don't believe that there are aliens, but we checked. It details the administrative investigations that we have done and the outcome of that. We do procedural investigations when we look at something and say, that may be a policy violation or a procedure violation. Let's take a look at that and say, is this something that we need to fix with training? Is this something that we need to fix with just maybe our policy isn't good or our procedure isn't getting us where we want to go? How do we fix that? We look at whether or not we are engaging any bias-based policing based upon our population and the traffic stops that we're doing and the uses of force. We also look at all of our use of force incidents to try and determine not only were they valid and legal and appropriate, but what can we do to reduce that in the future? We do a very, very good job with de-escalation. What we don't do a good job with is notating when we do a good job with de-escalation, so that we can also have those stats instead of only having statistics that say when we've used force. So that's a goal for us next year. We also look at our pursuits and our collisions. And again, the goal is to look at that and review them and then say, what can we do better so that every year we're at least 1% better than we were the year before. So that's what I have. I think we've got at least one question in there, and I know that Jewel has got some questions that came in earlier. So I'll stop sharing my screen, and then we'll just have a little question and answers here.
Okay, let's just dive right in. Do you feel the resources needed for the Health Navigator to offer to those in need are adequate?
I think that as a community, we have a lot of soul searching to do to figure out what can we do to make sure that we have enough beds for the people that need it. We do a lot of really good work with KMH. We do a lot of good work with a lot of the other charities. Melissa does a phenomenal job of knowing what resources she has and how to get people there. I think that because we have such a large issue, that's, especially coming out of COVID and some of the stresses there, the resources that are available are just overwhelmed with need. But her goal is to make sure that the people that she can get help do get help. And it's also important too, is that, and what she's really taught me about it is, you can't just try once, and if it fails, then you're done. Sometimes it takes people 6, 7, 20 times, and we have to be committed to that, and our community has to be committed to that instead of giving up on people. But again, I think we as a community, as a society in general, need to say, what do we really want to do? And I don't know if the police are the right ones to answer that, but the navigators are a really good step at getting towards that goal.
Chief, if I may interject something here too. it's really a small city having the resources to provide housing to the homeless is really not. I mean, we're struggling to find funds to pave our streets and repair sidewalks. The county has an entire division in human services that Doug Washburn manages. And what I will say is the county has, they're opening a facility up in the old West Coast, or not West Coast, Olympic Fitness building. And my observation is Commissioner Garrido has been trying to cite these the little tiny homes in a cluster with a community kitchen at multiple sites, and everybody acknowledges the need, but the moment it's within 3 blocks of your home, everybody packs the public meeting and says, but yes, we need that, but not here, not in my neighborhood. And so that's one of the challenges we face too, is where do we cite these things? Because no one wants them in their neighborhood, but everybody agrees that they're needed. So I think we all need to get our arms around that.
Thanks, sir.
To another question, what are some of the barriers to good police community relations, and what steps can be taken to eliminate them?
I think the first answer is that we have to be present. It's especially in a smaller community, I think it's easier. We can get out of our cars, we can walk around. I mean, Deputy Chief Main has lived here for almost her entire life. For those of you that either have attended South Kitsap High School or might still have access, she still has a record on the wall. So it's easier for us to get out and interact. And I think that's the first step, is that we have to be present. We have to be out of our cars. We have to go and talk to people. And we have the ability to do that in a smaller agency, because until you start getting into the evenings when it's super, super busy, we can go do that. I say outreach almost like it's a bad word, and Jill and I've talked about this too, is when you say that we need to do more community outreach, it implies that it's an extra thing that we should be doing, and it's not. My job is to be involved with the community and listen to what the community wants. That's why Dawn is such a fantastic partner, is because I can say, here's the keys to the shop. You run operations. I'm going to go out and make sure that our community supports us, because I'm out being honest and they know me, and I'm sharing all of the things that we're doing, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. And I think that's one of the barriers too, is that we're not willing to say when we make mistakes. We're not willing to own when bad things happen. And that's a reality. Anytime you put human beings into anything, there's a reality that something bad might happen. And if we don't acknowledge that, and we don't treat that with an appropriate response, and we don't share that with the community, we're not going to have trust, and we are the ones that are creating the barriers. The other thing that we are working hard on is that we're making sure that we're including the community in our planning. Verna Myers is a life coach, diversity speaker. One of the things that she talks about is that diversity is the party, but inclusion is the dance. So I can sit here and say, we want a really diverse police department, and we want to have diverse voices. But if I don't include you and I don't let you help me make decisions, what have I really done? I haven't done anything. And that's why that strategic advisory board, and I'm so, again, I keep referring to Jewel because she hears me say this a lot, but I'm incredibly proud of them. Not only do they have hard conversations with each other, they bring hard questions in from their constituents, but they helped me build that strategic plan. And then when I said, okay, well, one of the things I really want is a community advisory board, every single one of them said, we want to stay here and help you, because we built those relationships and we were building that trust. It's because we are out and we are saying, here's what we want. What do you want? And now let's make that happen. And we don't always agree. And there are going to be things that people ask me that I just can't do. You may want that, but that's not a thing that I can do or should do or am legally able to. But if we don't have that conversation and we don't directly involve the community, those barriers are things that we put up. If we had more time, we can talk about all the historical problems with policing and race and all the others, but I think that we are doing a better job here because we're willing to talk, have those hard conversations, and acknowledge that there are problems. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Have there been any more incidents of hate after the recent anti-Asian incidents in Port Orchard?
Okay, so for those of you that may not know, there was an incident a few weeks ago that presented as a hate crime. We are still investigating that. I was very hopeful that I was going to have more answers before tonight. That didn't happen. I hope that the community can appreciate that when we have an active investigation, it is incredibly important that we don't publicly discuss it. We've had conversations about whether or not we should be putting out regular press releases and communicating, but I believe that my community shares the same desire, which is we would like to catch the person that did it, as opposed to continuing to put things out there and driving people to ground. I would much rather arrest somebody for that than not ever. So I appreciate everybody's patience. I've had some phone calls on it, and those have gone well, but I appreciate the patience.
Thank you. What strategies have you incorporated or streamlined to strengthen the relationship between the police and minorities? And are these strategies working?
I think so. We won't know until they've been tested. But I think, again, it comes back to what we were just mentioning before, which is being communicative, being involved, and really listening and making sure that when you ask somebody's opinion, that you at least take it seriously. Even if you don't agree with it, I mean, you can be respectful of people and respectful of their opinion, but that's still not a thing that you can do. And the other component too is that you have to really build relationships before there's a crisis. If there's a crisis and then you say, well, you know what, I should probably go talk to the NAACP, and I don't even know who the president is, and I haven't talked to him, that's a problem, because you can't build trust in the middle of a crisis. But I know that if there is something that comes up, I can call Tracy Flood, because she and I talk regularly, because we're building that relationship. You know, some of the other groups that we work with, I know them on first name basis, so that I can call them up and say, hey, this is what's coming. This is what you may see coming out. Ask me questions. Let me share what I can share with you. And again, that can be shared with larger constituencies. There's no point in trying to bury our head in the sand and trying to hide. We're public employees that literally work for all of you. I mean, I'm not an elected, but I answer to electeds who are elected by the community. And if I don't share the good, bad, and the ugly, then I will never have trust and relationship. And that affects everybody that I work for in the police department. You know, some of the things that I think we've done successfully to strengthen those relationships are, again, having diverse boards that include members from across the community, to make sure that those voices are heard and that we're including those. I mean, I can't say enough good stuff about that group of people.
Thank you. Should cultural competency training be a required component of police training?
Yeah, and I believe it is under I-940. I think that we need to. I think state mandated things can sometimes be difficult, not only if they're unfunded, but what will work in Spokane may not work in Washougal, and may not work in Port Orchard, and may not be appropriate for Seattle. I think that as we continue to build our relationships here, we learn from the community what we think that they need and what we should do, and we should have our community members teaching us that. You know, if I want to go learn more about, you know, the historically Black churches in Bremerton, I shouldn't have somebody who's coming from California coming up to teach that cultural competency class. I should be going to them and saying, we want to know more about you, so that when we interact, we have a better idea where you're coming from. That's a different world. I don't go to those churches. I know that there are different relationships in Black churches and how they interact with the public, and certainly how they interact with the police. But if I'm not asking them to help us become culturally competent, there's no point in me paying somebody to create a PowerPoint to present to our team if we haven't asked the people that we live with.
So true. What challenges exist between your police officers and higher ups who do not share your vision on social justice and police reform?
Well, I think that's two-pronged. I still have to remember that I work I'm not the, I'm not ultimately in charge. You know, and I don't make all the decisions, so I can certainly make recommendations. I can tell you that the things that we have done have been supported by council, been supported by the mayor. They've been, the city's been absolutely incredible with the things that we've been working on for change in the last 20 months. There hasn't been anything that we've gone to them that was reasonable and said, we'd like to do this, or we need to increase here or there, that they've said no. So that's fantastic. The other thing is you have to have a strength of purpose and truly believe in what you're doing. You know, we talk about that a lot with the team in the police department. Is, you know, we're doing these things because they're the right thing. We all know that the ground has shifted underneath our feet, not only for behavioral health and dependency, but just in how we are going to be policing in this country. And you can deny it, you can ignore it, you can be upset about it, but that doesn't change it. I mean, you can't be mad at an earthquake. It just is. But if you have that strength of purpose and you know what you're doing is right, that's just the way we're going. And you can come with us or you can not come with us. I want you to come. If not, we'll open the door and you can step out. We don't want to throw you out, but these are the things that we are doing, and we hope you come with us. And so far, we've been very fortunate that the way that Deputy Chief and I and retired Deputy Chief Schuster have talked with our team and developed that downstairs, everybody's coming with us. And the other thing that's nice too, I mean, I've worked in agencies of various sizes. What I like about working in a small team is it makes change easier. You know, it was once described to me, you know, when you have organizations, it's like turning the Queen Mary, right? You can't make a 90-degree turn in any amount of time that seems reasonable. But in an agency of 30, I can literally talk to every single person here, eyeball to eyeball, within 2 days. And we can talk about what we're doing and we can message it out and people are available. And it makes it easier for us to make quicker changes. It's also helpful that the team that we have here understands why we're doing what we're doing and why it's important.
Thank you. What are the biggest concerns for officers regarding body cameras?
You know, we've talked about this. There really aren't a whole lot of concerns for the officers. You know, there is, you know, there's some concern about when they will be on or not, and there's a couple of reasons for that. When you're dealing with things, that may not be the tip of where your brain is. Like, I need to push this button before I save my life or I save this person's life. And that can look like they did it on purpose. So there is a concern about that when we know from human behavior and human psychology that that may just not even be part of your thinking. For those of us that have been in high stress incidents and you go back and you look at what you remember, you may not remember hearing anything, even if there are loud noises. You may not remember seeing things that were literally right next to you. That's just the way that human beings work. So there is a concern there that, you know, if I don't turn my camera on and it wasn't an intentional act, it was just, that wasn't a priority at that moment, does that mean I'm going to get in trouble or I'm going to get fired because now there's not video and something that was clearly a high profile thing because I forgot. The flip side of that coin is, because you know, some of the people that I've talked to that are not in the police department, they say, well, just make sure your cameras are already on, always on. Okay, so in a 10 or 11-hour shift, I can't talk to my wife. I can't go to the bathroom. I can't have a graveyard humor joke, which is something that we use to reduce some tension. How do we manage that if it's always on? And how do we protect the privacy of the public? You know, we have the right to do things and contact people and sometimes go in their homes when ultimately it turns out there's not a crime. How do we protect that privacy? Now, there were some new laws that came in a few years ago that addressed that, but that just means that we have the ability to redact it. How do we manage that data? If every single officer, so we have 10 to 12 officers on duty throughout the entire day. And let's just easy math, 12 people on every single day. That's 120 hours of video if it's always on. How do we store that? How do we manage that? How do we audit that? I mean, it's more complex than just saying, put a body cam on. There's a lot to it. I'm not personally opposed. I'm not professionally opposed, but we've got to figure out logistics before we commit to something, especially as expensive as body cameras.
Well, it looks like this next question is more about body cameras. What do you think an effective body camera program should look like? Should the legislator mandate the cameras for police departments, or should this be left up to individual departments?
So I've worked for agencies that had body cameras, and I've worked for agencies that do not have them. I think the most effective body camera program is one that is easy to use, easy to review, and is trusted by the community and the officers. That's the simple version. How you build that out, I've never built one out. We would have to go take a look and see what that is. So I don't have a very good answer for that. Again, mandates, I mean, that's what the legislature does when they develop laws and they put them in place. The issue, of course, is goes to what Mayor Patonsu said, which is if you mandate something that's several $100,000, not including the long-term cost, not including the staff, we would need at least one additional staff person downstairs just to manage the records that are associated with videos. And if that's what the community says and they're willing to fund it, we'll figure out how to do it. That's what we do. We're A+ personalities. You give us a task, we'll get it done. Unfunded mandates are difficult because what is that? What are we trading? Do you want body cameras? Or do you want the roads? I mean, we would have to figure that out. And again, that's a much larger conversation. And I'm not a policymaker. I don't make legislation. So I know that some of that stuff has been going through the legislature. And again, you know, the community needs to decide what they really want and what they would like to fund. And then again, being class or type A personality will make it happen if that's what the community wants. But those are decisions that they will have to make.
Thank you. What do you and your staff need from community members in order to advance the department's goals and build trust relationships with the community? So trusted relationships with the community.
Sure. I got to be honest. I think our community is doing really well. I do my best to kind of get out and walk around, at least downtown, because it's close to my office, and try and talk to as many people as I can. I would encourage you to learn more about just what we are and who we are. We're working on our website so that we can put that stuff out. I would encourage everybody to take a look at the reports that we're putting out and really understand what they mean. So if you want change, you know where we are, you know where we're going. You know, you can call me, you can email me. That information is on the website. We do feel supported. But that doesn't mean we don't have work to do. And that's also why we put these plans together. We've got some other stuff coming out. There will be an annual report that comes out that talks about some of our successes, some of the areas that we continue to work on in relation to the strategic plan, and then, you know, crime stats and things like that. I think ultimately, if you want to be involved, if you have things that you think would benefit some of the other people in the community that we can bring value to, give us a call. We'll come out. You know, the deputy chief, back when I think she was a sergeant, this was well before my tenure, but there was a family that lived in one of our neighborhoods that is a little bit more impoverished, and there was a lot of anti-police sentiment, and that made it difficult for us to remove the victimizers from that neighborhood. You know, it's not true that high crime neighborhoods don't want fewer cops. High crime neighborhoods, the people that live there generally want us there to help them. And so to kind of change that, they said, hey, can you, I don't know, come here and do something with the kids? And she organized a parade with fire trucks and gifts from Walmart and all these other things. And she still got the photo up on her office. And that was something that we could do that was positive. We came in to a group that said, hey, what can you do to show this, that you're the good guys? And she did. And that's what I would encourage you. If you guys really want to support us and you want to be able to provide these things for the community, come up with an idea. And one last piece on this. We have a woman, she's fantastic. She's been very, very supportive. She brings us probably more food and cookies and cupcakes than anybody else in the entire community. And we met with her last week because she called and said, hey, it's been a little while. We haven't done anything. You guys want cake or you want pizza? And so instead we met with her and we said, look, we're good. We feel supported. How about we do something together, whether it be for South Kitsap Helpline or we figure out how to get beds to kids that need it. But, why don't you partner with us? We'll feel supported because you're doing it with us, but we're giving back. We don't need more pizza and we don't need more, more cookies and cakes. We get a lot of stuff and we appreciate it. But what we would rather do is partner with the people that want to do that and give back to the people that need it more than us.
Thank you. How would you respond to those who say recreational drugs should be legalized to reduce drug-related crimes?
Well, I think if you decriminalize anything, it's pretty hard to say that there's a crime related to it. Again, I'm not a policymaker. If the legislature decriminalizes something, okay. I will say that part of the reason that I got into this profession is that my family has had people that were addicted to drugs, people that their dependency on that either led to their untimely passing or led them to prison. And unfortunately or fortunately, depending on which side of the coin you look at, a lot of times the only way to get people to treatment is to have them funneled through the criminal justice system. I'm not a policymaker. I can't make changes to how society gets people help. I think we also have to be aware that, especially when it comes to narcotics, we need to be human about it. We know that people that are addicted and have those dependency issues are slowly killing themselves, and we've got to find some way to help them. I don't necessarily know what that answer is, and again, I'm not a policymaker. But there needs to be a recognition that having a free-for-all for things that poison people, I don't believe we should have a society that says that that's okay, that you can slowly do that harm to yourself and we aren't going to support you in being better.
What are your interactions with local schools in the city?
We have a school resource officer that is assigned to the elementary school, middle school, and high school. We have great relations with them. One of the things that we've made sure is very, very clear, not only for the school resource officer, but for the school, is what we call our left, right, up lights, or what one of my Marines from downstairs says, stay in our swim lane. We are there to build relationships. They have a security team. We are not there to provide security. We do not assist with discipline. We do not go and check on truants. We are there to be a positive influence. We're there to make sure that the kids know that if they need to come talk to the police, we are already there. And the other thing too is it kind of helps administrators and staff understand what we do a little bit better. And one of the programs in DC, if you can help me out, the school program, I can't remember the name of it, Handle with Care. So we started Handle with Care this year. So when we respond to something in the field, a 911 call, and it involves a child, we are able to go through this program. And all we do is we alert the school that says, handle Johnny with care. And that's it. We don't tell them why, we don't tell them what's going on, but we are able to communicate to the school that this student had some trauma the day before, and the behaviors that may manifest because of that trauma are likely related to that, and they may act out, and you just need to handle them more gently. For those folks that are familiar with ACEs or trauma-informed response, if Johnny had a really bad night and there was an ugly incident at his house and dad went to jail, he's probably not going to perform at a high level or be emotionally where he needs to be at school the next day. And we need to make sure that we take care of him, because otherwise that's going to continue through his life, and we're helping to create that problem. I really like that program. It's a little different under COVID right now, but I think we do a pretty good job here with our school resource officer program.
Does the resource officer wear their gun in the schools?
Yes. If you're a commissioned peace officer, my expectation is that you are able to perform all duties of a commissioned peace officer, and that includes carrying a firearm. I guess one thing to act on, one thing to add to that, I was actually asked that. I went out and was speaking to some of the, I wouldn't even call them protesters, but the group that was out in front of City Hall for Black Lives Matter and then for Earth Day. And that was one of the questions. They're peace activists, and they say, "Can you not wear your gun?" And right about that time, we had somebody very, very angry drive by, stop while I'm standing there in uniform, yelling and screaming curses about all the things that they wanted to do to this group. And I said, I would hate to be in a circumstance where you need me to defend you or keep you safe, and I can't. Again, at the school, one school resource officer is not going to protect an entire school, but I would hate for there to be an incident where we could have protected at least one person and we couldn't.
Have the resource officers had any issues with students who may feel afraid seeing a gun in school?
Not that I'm aware of. I think there's a little bit of a difference between seeing a peace officer who we all know carry firearms, carrying that gun in school, and other circumstances where people carry firearms.
Okay. Let's go to this one. Research has indicated that unconscious racial bias often impacts human behavior. What can law enforcement do in terms of training, educating, or cultivating an internal culture to combat the effect of unconscious racial bias so that it does not affect how police enforce the law?
So that's a good question. I think that's broader than just law enforcement. I think there's a better recognition of implicit bias just in general. It doesn't have to be implicit racial bias. People have bias against a lot of things. In 2019, shortly after I came to the city, but again, I was coming from Poulsbo, all of us, so the sheriff and the municipal chiefs, we brought Dr. Bryant Marks out. He's a professor at Morehouse College, and he is the founder of the National Training Institute on Race and Equity. And so he came out and he taught, I want to say 4 sessions that talked about exactly that, which was just implicit bias and what that means and the psychology behind it and why human beings have that and what we can do to recognize it. Because again, you can't fight it. It's just a thing that is. But if you're aware of it, you can look at your decisions and say, okay, am I making this decision because it's the right decision? Or am I making this decision because I'm biased against somebody with blonde hair? Or I'm biased against somebody who's Asian? That's where we have to be. And I think the way that we get there, and again, this is society-wide, but I can only affect the 30 people that I work with. We have to have involved command staff, and we do. Deputy Chief Main and I, because we're a small team, can be very involved with our sergeants and very involved with our officers. And we look at decisions. We look at use of force decisions. We look at all these other critical decisions that our team makes. And we want to know why were these decisions made? Why was this person given a warning? Why was this person given a ticket? Why was this person, was force used here when it wasn't used in a similar circumstance? And there may be perfectly reasonable answers, but if we don't talk about that and we don't say, what is the why behind some of these actions, we aren't going to be able to identify that if there's an issue with bias. I think we have to collect our data appropriately. I think we have to share that not only with the community, but we have to share it with our team as to why we are doing that, because we want to be better. And I also think that through those regular trainings and conversations, we create a culture of introspection. It shouldn't be the chief or the deputy chief or your sergeant saying, I want to know why you made that decision. You should be able to get to the point of saying, why am I making these calls? What bias do I have? We all have bias, but if we don't talk about it and we don't figure it out, we're not going to be able to address it. And that takes a lot of time too. It's not something that you can say, I've got a bias and then, okay, then we fixed our problem. acknowledging it is kind of the first step.
Thank you. It looks like we have a question about downtown, the issue of homelessness downtown.
Okay. Was there more specific than just the homeless people downtown, or?
What steps are we taking to address the homelessness down?
Yes, we have homeless downtown. We've talked about this quite a bit. You know, as the mayor stated, I mean, we don't have a shelter here. The shelter is in Bremerton. There is one that is opening up in off of Mile Hill at the old Olympic Fitness. But we have to remember, not only are people who are experiencing homelessness human beings, but they're also, I mean, they have the same constitutional rights that the rest of us do. And I've been approached by some people that, you know, we have our regulars that are homeless in that area, and I've been approached by some people that want us to move them on. And my response has been, well, what if it was you that was sitting there? I mean, just because you have a house doesn't give you more of a right to sit there than that person. You know, we are working to address those issues, at least from a law enforcement standpoint, with our community health navigator. I can tell you that she is on first name basis with all of our homeless that we have regular contact with, and she works to get them services. We can't force people to get services. They have to want them. She does a great job for the people that want to have those services, but we can't force people, and nor should we be forcing people into treatment, because then we know it won't work. What I do find fantastic, though, is that every once in a while, she and I will go for a drive, or I'll go for a drive with the deputy chief. She'll be like, wait, I don't recognize that guy, because it's somebody new that's moved to the community, and we know that we can get some services to that. What I will caution people, though, is the navigator is not something where, you know, I've got a homeless guy, I want to talk to your navigator. Her position was designed to help us reduce 911 response, which is, she's doing a great job, which we are not a social services agency. But we can certainly, if you have questions about what social services are out there, she's developing a list that she's going to provide to business owners and other people throughout the community. So if they have questions, they can certainly reach out. And again, this is a community-wide effort. If we know that South Kitsap Helpline needs more food, we should all be helping. It shouldn't just be put back on a government agency to do so. We should all be part of that solution.
Absolutely. So that's all the questions I have thus far. Oh,
Got one more. I think
got one more that popped in. As a member of the Black Lives Matter group that has stood outside City Hall, I appreciate that Chief Brown has reached out to us and has had conversations with us. Thank you for participating in this forum. So I guess it was a comment.
Well, thank you. I did enjoy having you guys out there. I will say that the first, I think it was actually the first protest. It was shortly after George Floyd was murdered, and it was kind of a spontaneous thing. And we had a large group show up, probably 100 or 150. And it was, you know, it's the middle of summer, it was hot. And so we had a number of our guys in, and they're like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And what we did do was walk outside with 2 cases of Powerade that had been donated to us from Walmart, because it's summertime and it was hot. And we had more success in being able to conversate with people by bringing them some Powerade than going out and saying whatever else could have been said. And I share that story because that really is our philosophy here, is let's talk first. You know, everybody has an opinion. Again, we may not agree, but we can at least talk about it and we can get through it. And I'll be honest, I met some really nice dogs in addition to the people that were part of those groups. So we had fun this summer going out and talking, and I hope they made a difference too. There might be one more.
Are you planning to have these forums on a regular basis? It
Yes.
has been great.
Yes. Oh, well, I appreciate it. Thank you. I give all credit to Jewel and to the deputy chief. Yeah, so the plan is to have these on a regular basis. We hope to have them quarterly. If not, I mean, if something comes up, we may do them sooner or we may bump it. But yeah, I would like to do these quarterly. And certainly once COVID is through, I want to be able to do them in person. Whether we do coffee with the chief and we go take over Coffee Oasis or somewhere else, or I've got some friends that do ice cream in the park and they go down there and they give kids ice cream and they talk to the parents, and it'll be nice once we can do that. But yes, the intention is to have these be regular. I can't sit here and say, we want to be collaborative and we want to hear from you and then never talk to you. That doesn't make any sense.
They're just saying ice cream in the park, and I agree. I love ice cream in the park.
Thank you. Me too. Okay, well, I appreciate everybody taking an hour tonight. I was made aware that it is the draft, and so I appreciate those of you that decided to listen to me, at least while the draft was ongoing. Again, you can email me if you have questions. The information's on our website. We'd love to hear from you and love to get your perspectives, especially on what we're putting out. And I would encourage you to look for our annual report. Probably, I don't know, the data's a little delayed just because of COVID, but probably mid to late May, you'll see that posted. So thank you everybody for being here. And thank you to Janine and the mayor for helping us make this happen. And of course, my awesome co-host. All right.